G'day, Warwick.
Hey Nick, g'day listeners. Welcome to another episode.
You brought a whole bunch of energy to that hello that you did not have before you pressed the button to record. Where did
I
that come
know
from?
it's the performer in me, Nicole.
Hospitality faces. All right. What do you call a pony with a cough?
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What do you call a pony with a cough, Coxie?
A little horse.
Oh, that was actually pretty good. Wasn't funny, but it was pretty good.
I liked it.
There's probably some listeners still going, huh? I don't get it. A little horse. All right, double meanings. I don't know. Maybe I can find a segue in that, Nick, for
Mm,
today. Surprise packages, maybe. I don't know. Not what you'd expect. I'll
well,
dig
how
something
many
up.
trade business coaches do you expect to market themselves through a crappy joke? This is a really, I'm clutching at straws here, but I'm trying really hard to find a way to segue this.
Yeah. All right, let's just pull the teeth out, get on with it. Uh, Welcome to the podcast, Dante St. James.
Hey, g'day, g'day. I got
G'day,
to bring
g'day.
my enthusiasm now.
A nice Aussie greeting. Matt, you're joining us all the way from chilly Darwin, is that right?
Yeah, it's just so cold here. You can tell I'm wearing my winter woolies and my full corporate attire inside this lovely corporate office that I sit inside of, and
Yeah.
and they obviously make me wear my long sleeve shirts and all that as well.
Does anybody ever wear a suit in Darwin at all, Dante?
People from Sydney come here
Yeah,
and wear suits, and they very quickly learn.
Yep.
it's a pretty
Shorts and a
wild
polo.
place, Darwin.
Shorts and a polo. Gosh, it's even hot in Tassie at the moment, so I can't imagine what Darwin's like.
Yeah, honestly, this time of the year, it's probably getting hotter. I know that down in Adelaide today it was like 42 degrees or something. We're only getting up to 32. But like I always say up here, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. And for
Yep.
us, it's definitely like you step out the door, it's like a of sweat just hits you. And that tropical smell, there's a special smell of the tropics if you're not used to it. And I call it the smell of rotting vegetation and
Yeah.
disappointment.
Rotting vegetation and disappointment. That could be describing a lot of people's social media channels.
Exactly.
There's my
There's the
segue for
segue.
today.
There it is.
I knew I'd dig it up eventually.
Oh,
These ears aren't for just for looks.
well, they're that large. They need to be able to capture everything, surely.
100%.
Now I
So
can't look at anything else on that screen other than your ears. That's all I'm going to
absolutely, mate.
focus on now.
I could, like someone who trolled Nicole
Oh,
a while back, point out a feature of Coxie's, but I will not
you can. I have a
because
gap in my teeth. I grew up with a gap in my teeth. My mum used to tell me that if I could fit a 20-cent piece in between my teeth, God would love me more and he would sit me on his lap when I arrived at the pearly gates.
so you were just jamming a 20-cent piece in between your two front teeth your whole childhood.
Yep, I got a gap.
That makes some
I
good
like
social
to,
media content.
well, people like to point it out in case I didn't know for the last 48
I
years.
know.
In the mirror every morning, there's a gap in my teeth.
I know.
You know that
Social media.
Madonna paid a fortune to get one of those. Like she had a fake one put in, paid a fortune.
You got a real one, Nick. Yours must be worth gazillions.
And if you look, always, what's the brand name? There's a particular British makeup brand. They always have their supermodel always has a gap in their teeth.
Rimmel,
Rimmel,
Rimmel
thank
London.
you, Dante.
Yep.
You got it.
I don't
Oh, cool.
understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand about the world. So we are talking social media today, and we're going to get a bit more specific with you, Dante, which I like. And I think, Nick's been trolled. I haven't been trolled on social media, although we did have somebody respond to our ads
Yeah, that
recently
was nice.
that I'm pretty sure has a personal problem with both of us, or maybe just me. Because the comment they left was not very nice. But
No.
that's kind of, I think a lot of people have fear and ideas about social media that perhaps stop them from using it effectively. And they think there's a certain way they have to go about it. So, Dante, you should probably tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your background and, why a dude from Darwin is sitting here talking to us.
Like I'm not originally from Darwin. I did grow up in Sydney, so I did have a little bit of a chance to educate myself in the way of the world outside the bubble of this booming metropolis that I've managed to land myself in now. But yeah, I left Sydney as soon as I could. Basically, I was just never really born for traffic and crowds. It's just not a really big thing in my life. I like to be in places where, if I'm 15 kilometers out away from work, it takes me 10 minutes to get there. Um, no, an hour and a half each way commuting when I was like living in Engadine in Sydney and commuting
Oh,
to
wow.
Chatswood every day. I was like, nah,
Oh.
this is not a way to live. And then constantly living with bronchitis from being in trains with thousands of people. And I
You're
got out as
selling it.
soon as I could. I
Yeah.
got out as soon as I could. And then one of the first things I did when I graduated from uni in medicine is I went up to the Tiwi Islands to do a prac there and working in a mental health clinic on the Tiwi Islands on a place called Millikapati, which is a sort of a pidgin English for milk and a cup of tea,
Oh,
which
wow.
describes this one little white settlement in a very black place. And it was
Wow.
just a great place, amazing people. Just the people themselves were just incredible. But as you can imagine, remote community in the Northern Territory in a very isolated spot, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of substance issues. And I'm a young doctor going off to do my first thing, and I'm hit with that,
Yeah.
having never been to the tropics in my life. So I walk out of the Darwin airport and I feel like, oh, what have I done? What have I done in the middle of what we call the build up, right? So fast forward out of that, it took me quite a few years until I just went, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not doing this. This is
Mm.
not so much the North thing. The North thing I loved. I grew to really love the North of Australia, but being a doctor just wasn't what I wanted to do. And most people say, like, what did you do wrong? Who did you kill? And I'm like, no, it wasn't anything like that. I just made a really bad career decision, and thankfully I got out before I did kill anyone. So there wasn't any big black marks on my
No fatal
name.
errors.
No front page of the Sydney Morning Herald or the Melbourne Age. I managed to escape all that sort of stuff before I got out before anything went wrong. But that sort of got me into my first love, which is always technology. I spent probably my teenage years spending way too many hours on a Commodore 64 programming up choose your own adventure games using the basic language. And that sort of gave me a very early love of technology. So it didn't take long before I found myself in tech support because this magical thing called the internet happened
Yeah.
right when I was in my young adult years. And so you talk about, oh gosh, 2002, 3, 4, 5, around that period. Google was new. YouTube had just come out in 2005. Facebook wasn't even a glimmer in MySpace's eye at that time. And it was just this time anything was possible. And I thought, this is the thing I want to be in. This is like that
Mm.
connectivity. I'm talking to people in other parts of the country and world every day on IRC chat channels and going, this is what's going to change everything. And so getting involved in that, it made complete sense when I completely dumped technology and went and became a radio presenter. Ended up, funnily enough, back up in Darwin again, which was exactly not where I wanted to be as a radio presenter. But that's had now, that was 2003. I've now had a love affair with the North that I've pretty much stayed here on and off, go do a bit of study down south, come back up here. And now working primarily, what I'm probably most known for is my contract with Meta. So I'm one of the 5 Meta certified trainers in Australia. And what that means is that Meta, from the big mothership down in Sydney,
Mm.
gets all 5 of us and shoots us off all around the country and says, hey, we're flying you here this week and you're going to do a session teaching people how to use the Meta platforms better for business. And then secondly is what I find myself doing now as a startup mentor for new startups, particularly in the Northern Territory, who are working through the Darwin Innovation Hub and then through what is the Paspalis Innovation Investment Fund, venture capital fund. So please excuse, we've got some co-workers walking past me here at the moment. You have really great taste in t-shirts, I have to tell you. So the so part of that is working with a really bustling, as bustling as it gets in Darwin, right? Let's
Yeah.
get
3
real.
people walk past.
One person will walk past, and that's the only person you're going to see walk past you. But it is it's a high. I wouldn't say it's like high pressure, high paced environment, but it is an area where there's a lot at stake because you're
Mm.
taking people's dreams
Mm.
and giving them a way into that dream. But
Mm.
obviously, that whole social media thing has been a very big part of that because these startups, where they start from, where they scale from, where they let the world know that they're doing something, is inevitably through social media. And that's sort of the tie-in where I find like I'm taking all these parts of my life and doing podcasts and doing videos on YouTube. The radio presenters there, the psychology studies is there. Understanding some psychology is a big part of social media.
Mm.
But I guess also understanding the psychology of who your client is, particularly if you're working with tradies, right? Because there's a very specific set of psychology that goes with that. And I can guarantee you now, not a single tradie out there really likes social media.
Except for doom scrolling when they're supposed to be doing
Exactly.
their invoices.
Exactly. It's a great distraction to
Yes.
consume, but actually participating on social media, no, not interested.
No.
And I don't think I've ever met one who really likes it. They just go, someone's told me that I have to do it, but I don't want to.
That's right.
Social media really has changed the marketing space. And because it changes so rapidly, because it's still in its infancy, let's call it for what it is. It's changing so rapidly. It can be very hard to figure out what to do and what's going to work and what's not. And I think that perhaps is some of the problem with posting to social media and figuring out what's going to work best. Given that I did not know about the meta thing, Dante. I kind of feel like I've had my pants pulled down on air here for a minute. That's very exciting, and I've got about 50 million questions I'd like to ask you personally. But I wonder, perhaps you can give us a bit of an insight to how we figure out what it is that our client base for, so we're talking about the typical plumber or the typical sparky or builder. How do we figure out what on earth that client base wants to consume?
There's going to be a whole lot of gurus out there who are going to give you these frameworks, right? Everyone loves a framework. Oh, here's a framework to get clients. Here's the 10x formula for doing this. And they're all over YouTube, right? With their funny looking faces going. I can like there's tons of them. But when it comes down to it, there's only one rule in social media, and that's experiment. You've got to experiment until you find the right thing, because my audience as a carpenter is not going to be the same as your audience as a plumber. It's not going to be the same audience as an interior decorator or a roofer or a concreter or a bricklayer. Completely different audiences. Now, one bricklayer in Perth is not going to have the same audience as a bricklayer in Alice Springs. They're going to be completely different again. So all those different people with their different ideas of what they come up against and the things that interest them, that make them want to look at a bricklayer's Facebook page. And let's face it, that's not going to be the most fascinating, exciting place to go and encounter social media. Like you gotta get real and go, well, there's no one rule. It's just, oh yeah, I'm going to do TikToks. Oh, I'm going to do Instagram Reels. Oh, now you've got to go over and do these polls over on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's so hot right now. Whatever works for your people may not be what has worked for anyone else. And it makes it really hard for someone to say, oh, I am a social media specialist specifically working with tradies, because there's an assumption there that, oh yeah, I can lay that same template over everyone. And it's absolutely not true. It doesn't work. Especially if you're basically laying that template over 4 different home builders in the one city, and you're thinking that somehow that's going to show their the unique value proposition and what's so unique and special about them, but you're doing the same thing with 3 other builders. Like people are going to notice that it's all starting to look the same.
Yeah, sadly, we see that far too often. I guess what you're really telling me then, Dante, is it comes back down to the boring numbers, and that's how we're going to determine what's best for our client base, our audience.
It's like sending out a quote, right? You're not going to send out a quote that deliberately underprices yourself. You're going to look at the numbers and go, okay, this is how much it's going to cost me for materials at the current price, but I'm going to whack an extra percentage on that simply because I know that prices are going up right now. So when we finally get onto this build in 3 months' time, and when we complete it in 9 months' time, we know that it's going to have more expense involved in it. We know there's like trade unions at the moment talking to this person and that person, needing to go, okay, we need to make allowance for higher wages, higher costs for contractors. You make those allowances up front. So we can get that right with our quotes. We can get that right when it comes to our expenses and our businesses. But then we go, oh no, social media is this fuzzy, cloudy thing where it's all going to be about, platitudes and gurus saying, oh, you've got to connect with your customer and target your ideal customer persona. And it's like, that sounds great if you're a marketing graduate.
Yeah.
None of these guys are going to be like that. No one's going to be like that. In fact, almost no one in no business is like that. What they really want to know is, why am I even doing this social media thing? It's stupid. It's annoying.
Mhm.
Pretty stupid and annoying. You won't get any argument from us. Is it true? And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth or leading you up the garden path, maybe in return for not knowing that you worked with Meta. And does Meta have as much control over what happens with our content as we think it does? Because I think this is another one of those thought patterns that gets in the road from many of our trade business owners that we've experienced, really jumping into that social media space and doing something rather than nothing.
The biggest control method that someone like Meta or TikTok or Twitter or any of those have is that it's when their regulatory control says that they have to restrict certain kinds of stuff, and there's pressure on them from government to say, look, you can't just be putting out all this violent stuff. You can't just be putting out, lives of people being murdered live on screen. You can't be, just constantly putting hate speech through there. That's really the only stuff that the platforms themselves have to step in and say, this is what we are throttling back.
Mm-hmm.
So when people feel like they're being, there's this fake term goes around called shadow banning, and it doesn't exist. Like, it just doesn't exist. What it is that people say, but I used to get all this coverage, and then I had said this one thing that I think someone in the government doesn't like, and now I can't get anyone to talk to. I can't get anyone on my social media. No one's talking to me. It's like, no, it's because you're boring. You're boring and you say the same crap over and over and over, and you're not interesting, and you're not doing anything that anyone's interested in. And simply other people are more interesting on the feed, and your audience has gone over there. But we like to think, oh, there's a conspiracy. There's a red under every bed. There's Mark Zuckerberg sitting there with his joystick and his mouse and just going, ooh, Bob the Builder over there. We're gonna mess him up. It just simply isn't like that. If you're doing things wrong, then yeah, you'll get banned. And that's very clearly outlined in the community standards. And look, if you really want to read them, it's going to take you about 30 minutes to read it. It's quite enlightening about what the community standards are. It's just like, don't be mean. Don't be an a-hole, basically, on their platforms, and you won't get banned. Great, it's easy. Just don't do that crap. But some of us just cannot help ourselves, and we want to do that. But that's not the reason why people don't have followings and that they might have used to have, and they don't have the engagement they used to have. You've got to consider, right? There's 3 billion people on Facebook. There's another 2 billion on Instagram. There's 1.9 billion on TikTok. That's a lot of people screaming for attention on that space. And you've got about 46% of people on Facebook also posting on Facebook. That's a lot of content.
Yeah.
And that algorithm is not geared towards putting business posts on there, because let's face it, whilst our family and friends are also pretty dull and pretty boring, and they get on rants and all that sort of thing, the reality is there's almost nothing interesting that a business is ever going to have to say to a complete stranger, apart from buy my stuff.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So that's all pretty depressing, Dante. Should we just exit social media and go back to 1996?
Some people should, to be honest. There's some people who just shouldn't be on social media because it's doing nothing for them. Yeah, I've literally canceled 3 accounts on social media myself in the past week. I canceled, you might have heard of Mastodon. Like, it makes no sense to be there. Blue Sky, complete waste of time. Twitter, there's just nothing going on there. If you don't already have a big following, you're just not going to build one, because Elon's not gearing that system to be that anymore. It's a different beast that he's trying to build, and it doesn't involve that. So you go, well, where am I making a difference? Well, me personally, my biggest followings are YouTube and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I do most of my business. YouTube is where I get the crazy out there edge cases coming in and saying, hey, I want to work with you, but I'm in Orlando in Florida. Will you work with someone in America? And I'm like, I like American dollars. They're great. They're even better than Australian dollars all the time. So I'll take them. Don't worry. I'll put an extra 20% on the quote. So it's and I'll look at that, and I haven't mentioned Facebook or Instagram in there as either of the prime places where I am, because I'm a business to business. So that's not, no one joined up on Facebook and said, oh my God, I cannot wait until I hear a post from a business consultant. And they don't go to Instagram and say, oh, I cannot wait until Kim Kardashian does an interview with a business consultant. Like, no one's doing that. No one's there to see us.
Okay, so I've got to cancel all of our marketing efforts towards Kim Kardashian because, it's not going to really help us anyway. So.
Yeah, probably not. Probably maybe try to come a bit closer to home, like go like a what is her name, Miranda Richardson or someone like that,
Yeah,
or Chris Hemsworth or someone like that. Someone equally famous, but a little bit with an accent that we kind of relate to.
I'll redirect and see how we go.
Yeah.
I noticed you haven't mentioned Threads, and look, I joined up to Threads, and I've done nothing with it because it was just another platform that I didn't have time for. Do you think that's got some legs and something worth considering for a trade business owner?
To be honest, Threads is when someone's trying to be really cool and they come off as really cringe. That's what's happening on Threads at the moment. There's a whole lot of business owners who are very businessy over on LinkedIn, and they're on Facebook, and they're very, very, very much about their business and what they're doing and what their values and benefits are. And then they get on the Threads and they're like, you know what? Threads is the place where I'm going to be quirky. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be human. And they end up looking just so cringe because these are not people. These are not Rove McManus people. These are, they're not comedians, and they're trying to be comedians. They're recycling jokes and memes that they've seen somewhere else. And it's so out of character for the persona they've built elsewhere that if you're over on an Instagram and you've got a particular personality you're putting across there, as let's just say you're a kitchen and bathroom designer.
Mhm.
Right. So you're doing kitchen and bathroom designs. You've got a beautiful curated feed of all the designs you've done. You've got testimonials from your clients. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And then you get over the Threads, which essentially every time that you go to Threads, all the people who follow you on Instagram are notified, oh, you're now on Threads.
Mm.
And so they come across and they see this absolute tool talking all about, no, like what's green and red and green and red and green and red, and it's Kermit going around in the microwave. Like, it makes no sense. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And so whilst we're trying to make this like light and breezy environment, you got to realize it's connected to your Instagram. So
Mm.
it's going to be a real clash if you're not doing the same thing in both. So for by and large, you've got about 780 to 790,000 people in Australia are on Threads at the moment. It's not a huge amount of people. No, it's quite simply because it's a solution looking for a use case.
Mm.
So it's like it's like Twitter is kind of stewing its own juices and dying in a little bit, and they've lost nearly 100 million users and all that sort of thing. So what can we do to try and maybe pick up those users? Is there a way we can pick them up? So Marcus just slapped together this thing called Threads that does some of the things that Threads does, that Twitter does, but not all of them. So the Twitter people aren't happy. It does some of the things that Mastodon does, but the Mastodon people aren't happy. Oh, he's going to connect it through to Mastodon and all those. Oh, no one cares. Honestly, we didn't really care about Twitter in Australia. We never really picked up on that very well. It
No.
was like such a barely used
Definitely
social
a US
network
thing.
outside of journalists and people who work as media advisors for government officials. Like that's all that was on there really, and then a whole bunch of old men who were yelling about, I don't know, the kids on their lawn or something like that. It's just
Have you seen
it is,
my
and then
Twitter feed, Dante?
I've been watching very closely, mate, and I got to tell you, I'm absolutely disgusted.
It's not consistent with how I'm showing up on Facebook. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
So Dante, tell me if I'm giving bad advice to people here. Something I've said to business owners, to trade business owners, quite a number of times over the years is they're like, I don't know what to do with social media, because they're like, oh, we need to spend money on ads. Like, don't do that. Like, that's not the first thing you would do. Yes, you should be on social media, but in terms of how they think about their social media platform, particularly Facebook and Instagram, because they're kind of the two main trade to consumer platforms that we would see. I could probably throw Pinterest in there, but I know absolutely nothing about it. Is think of it like an extra website, or it's a portfolio tool almost, and it's also a way just for people to kind of get to know you a little bit. It's not a place to go smashing ads or trying to get the megaphone and say, hey, come buy my plumbing because you won't have poo on your floor. Like it's just, I think people look at it as this separate thing to their brand and their awareness in the marketplace. But I've always said to them, just think about it like another website. Is that bad advice, or is it
It's not bad advice, and it's pretty close to the advice I would give. So I go a little bit of a step further, and I go, look, you're going to post a whole bunch of stuff on social media, and barely anyone's going to see it. Barely anyone will see it. Like, really what's happening on the feed on Facebook in particular is mostly videos that are coming up. And they're not your videos. They're going to be influencer videos. They're going to be highly engaging, very beautifully put together, or at least professionally made videos going to show up there. That's what people are consuming. That's what they want. Really low end videos shot on a 7-year-old iPhone on a building site with a scratched lens. No one's there to see that. So what you got to do is try and think of this as social media is not a place where you're going to get organic reach unless you're really funny and really controversial on TikTok or something like that. You can get massive reach on those things. But they're not going to be from people who are ever going to order what you do. They're not going to employ you. They're not going to give you a job. They're just going to be people who are laughing, they move on. So you approach things on social media, particularly on the Facebook and Instagram side of it, as make it a place where people will refer you, because conversations happen on those places. Conversations on Messenger, conversations between people in comments, and especially on Facebook in groups. And the big thing on Facebook is mums groups, renovators groups, local groups, interest groups, people who've got very specific interests on things. And that's where all the recommendations happen. Now, they're rarely ever going to recommend a website for a person they know. What they're going to recommend is a Facebook page. And that Facebook page is going to get more highly ranked in the conversation that's happening in the comments that are happening here because it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's not leaving that platform. So what happens is you show higher, and then someone will check out that page. And what if they get there and you haven't posted anything since 2013? You're going to look like you're not in business. You're going to create a little bit of friction there that someone's just not going to bother. They're going to look and go, yeah. But they get there and they see you posted something maybe a couple of days ago, and it's a good photo that adequately explains what you do. What they've done is they've made a connection between what the person who recommended you said and what you actually are, and it matches. So step one, these people are for real and they are for me. So the step for them to take to click on a button to call or to send you a message to your Facebook page is much greater. Now, what that means is you still only got one person referred through to your Facebook page. But that one person was sent there for a reason. They didn't just discover you magically because an algorithm delivered you. They got specifically recommended to that. That's the power of social media, not coming in feeds and having, algorithms recommending you to millions of people who don't really care or aren't even in your area to start with, so you can't serve them. No, what you want is that one person who, is in that mums group. And this is where so many of these referrals happen, in a local mums group in that suburb. And they say, oh, I worked with Bob and he was fantastic. He really understood what was going on, and he never left a mess. And they're like, okay, great, let's hop on that. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 people in that group are then suddenly going over to Bob's Facebook page. They see some great photos that have been taken of the before and after, or, I tend to avoid the before. Just go to the after. No one wants to look at the mess. They want to look at what you can do, not just what was there before. Just the best photos you can do. And if you can't take good photos because you just sort of always pointing your camera like that and going, oh, don't really know what I'm doing, that'll do. Pay someone to come in and do it. It won't cost you much.
It's definitely worth it for the marketing campaign. And when you consider the social media is so visual, it's really important that the visuals connect with your end consumer, right?
And then you can use them elsewhere in things like your websites and your other social medias, and so when you're sending people examples of your work, put it in your capability statement, put it into your proposals and quotes. You've got some great photos to go with there, and those photos will never date. They'll always look good.
That's
Dante,
right.
speaking our language. I love this. All right. How often do I have to post, Dante? Because I don't like posting on social media. It takes a lot of work. I can't figure it out. Sometimes I press the wrong button or I make an error in the copy. Like, it just seems so hard. Do I have to do it every day?
Oh, absolutely not. You can if you want, but it's not going to get you any further. Like, honestly, if you're going to post one great thing a week, it's going to do better than 5 really crappy things a week. So what you're better off doing is just, hey, guess what? I got a framework, right?
Has it got a
Everyone's got a
name, Dante?
framework. Yeah, everyone's got a framework. I don't even have a name for it, but it's just basically it's all about creating 3 posts a week for 13 weeks, which is a quarter of a year, and you repeat them.
Yeah.
3 times more And that's a year's worth of social media content. What
Mm.
the idea is, though, it's like we pick out what are the topics you're going to talk about. There's 2 or 3 of those. What are the values, the things that are seriously important to you that you really want to communicate in those things? So if it's quality, great. That's awesome. If it's reliability and you are reliable, it's not just this thing where you like to say you're reliable because no one else is. You're actually really living that out. And that's a feature that you do live. Or if it's something to do with creativity, because you've got a great team behind you who is fantastic with creating very custom kind of things, then that's written into those posts. And then finally, you've got 5 questions to ask. I wish we had sort of like a screen. I could point to them. It'd be very, very easy. But the first one is, what can I teach?
Yeah.
So there's something you can teach people about what it is you do that opens up that world. So what can I teach? The second one is, what have I noticed? So this can be your commentary on what I've noticed out in the industry, what I've noticed when I've been into fixing up bathrooms, what I've noticed when I'm inspecting paint jobs that people have done, what I've noticed when people are trying to recreate, parquetry floors on a budget. Then we look at, how do I think differently? That's number 3. How do I think differently about this topic that I'm talking about? That's your point of difference. That's the thing that makes you different. Now, I'll tell you what's not a point of difference. We are customer centric.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a given. People expect that you've got great customer service. So that's not a feature. And every radio ad I ever hear for a tradie up here is always saying, we give great customer service. When we say we're going to turn up, we turn up. I'm like, but that's table stakes.
Yeah.
You should be doing that anyway. So
That's right.
but that's not a feature. Exactly. It's like saying we're Coles, we're open every day of the week. Well, duh, of course you are. That's what's expected out of a national supermarket chain.
Right.
So it's don't be obvious like that. What is it that's really different about you? Well, we actually sit down and take the time to talk to you about what really works in your kitchen. Or we sit down with you and say, well, like, we'll give you suggestions if we think that the original drawings probably aren't going to fit your lifestyle. And that's the sort of stuff that's a point of difference, is that it's the extra. It's not the stuff that you should be doing anyway. That's what everyone should be doing. What it is what are the extra things we do? What's the extra mile we take? And don't just say we go the extra mile, because that doesn't mean anything. What it is just give an example. We don't just say we go the extra mile. You say, this is what we do to go the extra mile, and actually describe what that is. So that's what makes you different. The next one is, what can you deliver as a list? Because the internet loves a bloody list, I tell you. 3 ways to spruce up your bathroom on a budget. Here's 4 ways to ensure that you've got a warm home in winter and a cool home in summer. Those kind of little, and they used to call it clickbait. It's not really. It's just people find it really easy to consume a list. It doesn't take up a lot of calories in the energy you're using to be able to comprehend it. It's very easy. It's why they're so popular. And when they're written well, they're actually very good with ranking with Google. So you can put them on your website as well, because that's how I've got like over 110 pages of my website sitting in the top 3 positions on Google for those subjects, simply because I just list dot points. Dot points are great. Google loves a dot point, easy to consume. Social media loves dot points. And once we've done the list, the final thing we're doing is, I call it how it happened and how we made it happen. So it's like telling a story. So it's saying, Karen from Lansdowne was thrilled with her new patio. Here's how we made that happen. Step 1, we sat down with Karen and said, what do you actually want to do with the patio? Are you putting it on there to increase the value of the home, or are you doing this to create more space to be able to live in? Oh, you want the second thing. Great. Then we sat down and did some suggestions of what might work according to how she plans on using that new patio. So you tell the story about how you work with people. That becomes a case study and a testimonial all in one.
Yep. Love it.
Now, I'm not expecting a tradie to sit down and do this on their own, like to say, okay, take my 5 different questions and find your 3 values. And like, it all sounds like wave a crystal in front of you and feel the energy vibrating in you, and all the social media and this will come out of you. It's not like that. It's definitely, it's a process that we do.
Shame, because I think a lot of people were hoping that was the process.
Oh yeah. Shut your eyes, click your heels together and say there's no place like home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people business owners are still feeling like or hoping that there's this river of leads that will come from social media if they just get it right, if they just do the right sort of posts or the right ad spend or whatever, that all of a sudden they're just going to find this seam of gold. And like anything, particularly in business, I guess, but certainly in life, it's a bit of a long game. It's that consistency. It's showing up all the time. It's
Yep.
being predictable for people. And certainly based on what you're talking about, Dante, you don't even have to have fresh content all the time. It's just being there. It's showing up.
That's exactly what it is. And the fresh content thing basically is because people aren't transfixed on your content as a trade, right? They're not coming to your site expecting to be entertained, educated, and informed and excited. They're coming there because they're being referred there from someone else, and they just want to see that you are what they said you are.
Yeah.
Are you capable of doing the thing that my friend said you're doing? Oh, look at those photos. You clearly are. Great. Okay, I'm going to reach out to you. So it's like someone, it's like what billboards used to be, or what newspaper ads used to be. You used to think, well, if they can afford to advertise in the newspaper, they must be good. If they've got the biggest ad in Yellow Pages, geez, they must be good. Nowadays, what it is, if they're being recommended by a lot of people, they definitely must be good. That's more what we do.
Yep. Love it. I love the whole Yellow Pages thing. The biggest ad. I used to do that when I was a young bloke. I picked the biggest ad because that was clearly the best business, but they were just the one that had been
That's why they
sucked in the
paid it.
most by the sales rep. Like, no, man, you got to have the big ad. The big ad performs best.
Yeah, and then $250,000 later, and you're still trying to recoup it. Recoup that money 6 months into the year.
100%. All right, Dante. So there's a question I'll have to ask our guests, mate. If you had 1,000 tradies in a room, or maybe on a Zoom call these days, what's one piece of advice you would love to leave them with?
Stop trying to do it all yourself, because you're not going to get it done.
Good advice, mate.
Honestly, to get someone else to do it, not me, because I'm too busy as it is, but it's more like it's just get someone else to do it, because you don't want to do it. You're not motivated to do it. You're going to do a really crappy job of it. So there's something you're really good at, and it's called being a tradie, right? You're really good at that stuff. You're probably really good at taking an early day on Friday too and going out for beers. But the one thing you're not going to be good at is social media. So leave that stuff to the people who are good at it. If you're a chippy, you're crap at plumbing. If you're a plumber, you're crap at roofing. You don't try and cross each other's boundaries on the building site. So why would you do it when you're going into try and becoming a marketer? I know everyone on YouTube says you can be. Honestly, it's not going to work. It's never going to work. Get someone in, give them a great, a framework to work with. It can be mine, it could be someone else's, but basically keep it as simple as you can and recognize that there's got to be a return on investment as well. You can't just keep plowing money and time into this. Now, your time's too valuable. That's why you get someone whose time's cheaper to do it. So, make sure, because no one can pay tradie rates for a social media manager when they're a small business. So don't do it yourself.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.
Great advice. Mate, if people wanted to go and check you out and see what a man from Darwin looks like, what's the best place for them to do
with
that?
A fancy name like his European royalty, Dante St. James. What the heck is going on there? That was real fun growing up in the suburbs in Sydney in the 80s. I tell you what. Jeez. Love it now. Everyone remembers the name. But back then, the problem was that everyone remembered the name.
That's right. Yeah, you attracted a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah, all the wrong kind of stuff. There's a reason why this nose is kind of pudgy and flat. It's from
not alone.
Look, honestly, DanteStJames.com, just my website. Honestly, I'm the easiest person to find online. Just type in that horrible, pretentious name, and you're gonna find me, because I'm all over the place.
Love it.
So it's find me, have a chat. If you want to chat about that particular framework and sit with someone who can work through it with you, I'm more than happy to give some people a bit of advice around that as well.
Nice. And you can call it the St. James method.
Oh, that just
social media.
It sounds like a breathing technique for when you're having a baby or something. I don't
know. Well, you could do that too. All right, Dante. Well, mate, that's been very insightful. Very different take on social media, especially coming from somebody from within the belly of the beast, so it were.
Lucky I'm a contractor, so I can say these things, but the employees can't say them.
I hope they renew your contract. But good, honest advice, mate. And as Dante has said, gang, reach out for support. Obviously, we offer guidance and support to our members through what we do here at Tradies in Business as well. And I think it's good advice. Plumbers shouldn't do their own mechanical work. although I know a lot to do. So maybe that's what's going on. Anyway, thanks for your time today, Dante. It's been great.
Thanks, you guys. Have a great year.
Thank you, you
Cheers, mate.
too. Thanks for listening.